Hello, Unity of Fredericksburg. I am so glad to be with you today, even though it's just via video, but my thoughts, prayers, and energy is right there with you. My talk today is about making the impossible possible. It's about finding and strengthening your faith, even if you are faced with the impossible. If you are in the fire, and how to rise out of the ashes like the phoenix and soar to new horizons. Yes, I'm so excited about that topic because faith plays a huge part in anything that we do in life. It all begins with communication. We listen and we speak, right? Unfortunately, sometimes we just forget to listen, right? We are so focused on ourselves, of what we want, how we see things, that we forget to listen to others. But most importantly, we forget to listen to God, to our Creator. And when we communicate with God through prayer and meditation, we also have to take time to listen. And although the answers might not come right away, but eventually they come. And sometimes they come even in disguise, right? And we don't recognize them. Like that man who was drowning. He was on the top of his roof after a big storm, and a rowboat came by and said, "Hey, hop in, we will save you." And the man replied, "No, that's okay. I'm a praying man and God will save me." Okay, the rowboat left. Next comes a motorboat. Same thing. They ask, "Come on, jump in, we're going to save you." Same response. "I'm a praying man. I know God will save me." And last, the water starts rising. A helicopter comes in, says, "Come on, jump on, we will save you." Same response. "I'm a praying man, I believe God will save me." So the helicopter left, and soon the water rose above the roof and the man drowned. In heaven, when he finally meets his Creator, he asks God, "God, what did you do? Why didn't you save me? I prayed for you." You know what God's answer was? "I sent you the rowboat, the motorboat, the helicopter. What else do you want?" So, I mean, obviously this is a joke, and this was just to give you an example how sometimes the answers come to us, but we don't listen to the answers. And we have to be open to also accept answers in a different way, maybe, like we expected. Who knows, maybe the drowning man expected a big light comes from the heaven and flashes him up. I don't know. But the point that I'm making is that sometimes we just think of, well, we have an expectation of something that we, in this case, drown out all the other noises or all the other solutions that are presented our way. And it is so very important to be open. And sometimes we might not like the answers, right? But if we accept and know there is a higher outcome, a higher good for you. Believe me, I have been there many a times where I thought, why is this happening to me? I am a faithful woman, and I thought this was the right thing to do. But in retrospect, what I thought would save me actually was not the saving point or the answer or the solution that I thought was right for me. And in retrospect, I could see, wow, thank you, God, that you didn't let me go through with this. because now I have a much better solution. So we actually have to take time to listen to God, even if we not necessarily like the answer that we get. I truly believe God knows what's best for us. But of course, He also gave us free will, meaning that you and me, we all can make the decisions to move forward in any way we please. Have you ever been in a situation that a friend or acquaintance just keep on talking, and they're not listening to you? They just keep talking, right? Anybody been there? I've had those friends or colleagues where I just eventually had to give up, said, okay, let them do the talking. Or perhaps you had a nightmare that you kept talking and no one is listening, right? Those nightmares, you're running and you don't get anywhere, right? And you keep talking and no one is listening to you. You are invisible. But luckily, you wake up in the morning and you realize it's just a dream. But what if it is not? Let me share with you the story of Victoria. Victoria was an 11-year-old girl, bubbly, very active, funny. She was a great swimmer and she had big dreams. One of her dreams was to win a gold medal in swimming. And the other was to dance with the stars. Yes, she was also a little dancer on stage. Of course, we all have dreams, right? But someday, or one day, something happened to her. She contracted two autoimmune diseases that were very, very rare, that let her stop moving. She couldn't move her body any longer. Then she couldn't talk. And then she couldn't eat. And eventually it was so bad that she fell into a coma. She was rushed to the hospital and she remained in the coma for almost 2 years. But her parents did not give up on her. Like a miracle, after 2 years, she woke up from the coma. She saw what's going on. She listened to what people were saying, and she answered them. But she didn't get an answer back because no one was hearing her. She answered in her thoughts, but her disease was still there. She couldn't move. She couldn't speak. She couldn't do anything. And even her eyes, she couldn't control. Wherever the body placed the eyes, that's what she saw. But she wasn't able to move her eyes to look at someone. So she literally was locked in her body. And the only thing that she has was a one-way conversation with herself. Well, I would say it would be a two-way conversation, but she didn't have a conversation to the outside world. She just had a conversation with herself. Perhaps asking a question, what's going on, what's happening? And then she answered herself, nobody can hear me. But here is the most important conversation that literally saved her life and kept her insane while she was in this vegetative state. And that was the conversation with God. You know, praying to God and listening to the answers that she received. Because there are answers. and we hear them silently in our minds. And that was the saving grace for her. She listened to doctors and nurses who had terrible things to say about her. Things like, I don't know what the parents still think she will make it. She will never come back. And all those things. That must be devastating for you if you're in this situation. And haven't we all been in dark situations that we don't feel understood? But now imagine that you cannot even reply back, that you cannot say anything. And she was also then riddled with seizures. And after 2 years, finally, one of the doctors gave her a medication, or the parents asked for a medication for the seizures to stop. And when she got that medication, what happened then was a miracle. She was able to control her eyes, her eye movements. And one day her mom sat on her bed and she looked at her. Their eyes locked. And immediately the mother was saying, "Can you hear me? If you can hear me, can you blink? Blink once, blink twice." And that's what Victoria did. And from that moment on, the recovery started. And they started physical therapy, so they eventually were able to feed her again real food. And eventually her speech came back. And she could move her arms. But she still was paralyzed from the waist down. But for Victoria, that was victory. That was amazing that she could communicate again, because communication is so important. But what kept her insane all this time that she couldn't? How she shared later in her biography, said, gratitude. Every morning when I woke up, I started with 5 minutes of gratitude. And whatever she could think of that she was grateful for. Grateful for just being here, grateful for being awake, grateful for her parents, for her 2 twin brothers who were on her bedside the entire time that she was awake, and they made jokes and all this kind of stuff. So she was so grateful for everything. So gratitude is important. And then when she finally went home in a wheelchair, she went to the coma when she was 11 years old, got out when she was 15. Now she had to go back to high school, right? And even for us, that was a hard time. But she made a point. She wanted to graduate with her twin brothers because she was the oldest. She was the first one that came out. And so even though with a 5th grade education, she worked very, very hard and she graduated. And then it didn't stop her. She was involved and she went back to swimming. And her coach encouraged her to train for the Olympics. She only had 6 months' time for the Paralympic Olympic Games, right? And she did. And guess what? Her first goal and dream that she had when she was an 11-year-old girl was to win a gold medal. And not only did she win a gold medal at the 2012 London Olympics, but she also got 3 silvers. So she was above and beyond what she even could imagine. But her story doesn't stop there. It went on. She actually then started, okay, what is the next step for me? She started public speaking because that was another thing that she did. She promised God when she was in her hospital bed and nobody could hear her, said if He makes it possible for her to recover, she will make a positive difference in this world. And she started public speaking. But it didn't stop there either. Not only was she able to motivate people, children and adults, but then there was another huge, huge, huge step she wanted to take. A huge hurdle she wanted to overcome. And that is to walk. Now, she was in the wheelchair for 4 or 5 years. And her mom and her went to a facility in California called the Walk Project. And of course they couldn't sustain to be there because it's a long journey if you want to do this, if you want to reactivate your spinal nervous system. So the doctor said, the prognosis of the doctors were, I wouldn't mortgage the house on that. But she saw that this is possible. There is a possibility. And she had faith. Her mom had faith in Victoria. And Victoria had faith. So what did she do? She went to the CEO of the company in California and said, we need one in Boston, where they lived. And he said, well, you have to have passion in order to do that. So she called her husband and says, honey, we have to mortgage our house. And that's what they did. So they mortgaged the house and they built the Walk Project in Boston. And Victoria was the first client, the first patient. Now, for the next 2 years, she worked. Now, get this. It's not only what you want and the will that you have, but you also have to put in the physical action steps. She worked 6 hours, 7 days a week for 2 years. Now I say that is commitment, that is passion, that is absolute 100% commitment to the goal. But you have to take the physical steps, right? You cannot just pray, please let me walk, God, please let me walk. You have to do something. Just the same as the drowning man who was on the roof and prayed, absolutely. But then he had to take physical action to jump into the boat, to climb onto the helicopter, whatever it is. Because we are here on this earth and there are still physical laws that apply to a certain extent. But Victoria did it. And after 2 years, finally, she felt some twitching in her leg. A twitching after 2 years. How many of us would have already given up, right? But not her. And she continued doing it. And that was 4 years later when she was actually in a brace and with crutches, and she could walk on her own. So now get this. Wasn't there another goal and dream that she had? Yes. Her dream was to be a contestant on Dancing with the Stars. Now get this. She just came out of the wheelchair. She still had crutches. So when she talked to her physical therapist, he said, she shared with him, I want to be the first in the wheelchair on Dancing with the Stars. You know what his reply was? Why in the wheelchair? Right? So finally, she got that phone call. She was accepted. And she had 6 months' time. And listen to that. Prior to that, the entire time, she was like 10 years in a wheelchair or in a hospital bed. And just for a few months on crutches, walking on her own. Now Dancing with the Stars. But you guessed it. She kept working hard. And 6 months later, she was a contestant on Dancing with the Stars. So my question to you is this. What was your time, perhaps, that you were locked in? Maybe not physically, perhaps it was physically, but maybe locked in your own thoughts of limitations, your own thoughts of not feeling enough, not good enough. And what kept you there and what took you out of it? I believe we all had our shares of challenges and even devastating situations. Now the question is, how do we respond? If you feel stuck, or maybe you have a feeling of being locked in, no one understands you, no one is listening to you, and you don't see a way out, about Victoria's story and how she coped with her illness and situation of being locked in into her own body. So, the communication with God is crucial. And here are my 3 top contributors to my happiness. And those are the things that helped Victoria on her journey to turn the impossible to possible. Number 1, gratitude. She practiced every single day gratitude for 5 minutes, or perhaps even more. Our minds can only focus on one thing at a time. You can either focus on your situation that is bad, focus on all the things that went wrong, focus on all the negative things, or you can switch to gratitude, what you're grateful for right now, and really search and look for everything. And even if it's just as simple as, I'm grateful for the sun that shines today, or I'm grateful for the rain that waters the flowers. And if you make this a practice, you will be amazed how much better it makes you feel over time. It gets easier and better. Okay? And the next thing, number 2, is joy. Embrace joy. That is a huge part of happiness. And shifting from feeling down, negative thoughts. Watch funny movies. Go out into nature and skip. Sometimes that's what I do. I sometimes feel crazy. And even if somebody's watching, I don't care, right? But just sometimes I feel I want to be a kid again, and I then jump for joy. Whatever it may be for you, but bring in the joy into every single day. It makes you feel better. And then the last thing, number 3, is faith. How can you strengthen your faith? Or if you lost it, how can you find it? And the most important part is that we have a conversation again with God through prayer and meditation. And now I invite you to a short meditation so that we can reflect, that we can pray and listen. Take a deep breath. And if you're comfortable, close your eyes. Take another deep breath. And be open. Be open to listen. Be open to receive. And start with gratitude. The gratitude is one of the keys to unlock what needs to be unlocked. Think about all the things that you are grateful for right now. And even if a thought comes up like, I don't know what I'm grateful for, think about what could you be grateful for? What could you be grateful for? And now, I invite you to shift your thoughts and think about all the joyful experiences that you had in your life. Perhaps it is a graduation or a major family event like a wedding or a birth of your child. Perhaps it was a fun vacation, doing a walk either on your own or with friends or your pets. Think about joyful, happy events in your life and stack them one after another after another. And now I want you to grab just one of those events that was very powerful, joyful, happy for you, and go back to that time and experience the happiness that you felt. Feel the feeling. Feel the feeling that you had. And feel it right now. The happy feeling. And last, have faith. Strengthen your faith through prayer and meditation, just like this one. And now, let's sit in the silence and just listen. Now, take a deep breath in and slowly come back into this room. Feel the seat underneath you, maybe wiggling your fingers. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. I invite you this week to think about Victoria Arlen's story. And remember, even though it seems she's an extraordinary person, and she is, but you are one as well. She is not the exception. She just showed us how exceptional we all can be. Just as Jesus showed us and shared with us when he said, and I paraphrase, that we can do all the things that he did and greater things, right? So, what is your great things your great thing you want to accomplish? What is it that you want to change? What is it that you want to unlock? I know you have everything you ever need right there within you. It's just a matter of exploring and letting it out. And go forth this week with gratitude, joy, and strong faith. And when you find yourself in a situation that you perhaps feel locked in, just remember Victoria's story. And remember those 3 things that will help you get out of it faster. Because at the end, we all can't avoid challenging situations. That is life. But what we can do and what we have control over is how we respond to it. I wish you a wonderful rest of the day, a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon. Namaste.